the Switch 2 will be a massive success besides, well, everyone. Speaking of which, hey everyone, Andre here, and we're going to be talking about some sales numbers today. I know it's usually often boring, but these are pretty interesting, I think, at least if you're a fan of following how things are doing, because as it turns out, the Switch 2 is not only a success, it might be the biggest success of basically all time up to this point. Let's get to the numbers, and for this, we're not going to be relying on the official report. I mean, the numbers are from there, but this is kind of boring to look at. We're going to use Omeo Dome's breakdown on Twitter and add a few other things along the way, because they point out that Nintendo Switch 2 has sold 10.36 million units as of September 30th. That is the biggest launch of any console ever for its first 2 quarters, beating Nintendo Switch, which sold 4.7 million, the PlayStation 4, which sold 7.5 million, and the PlayStation 5, which sold 7.8 million. So it's beating it by a huge margin, thanks to Video Games Chronicle for providing that breakdown. So that is absolutely massive. The Switch 2 is blowing everything out of the water right now, which is crazy. And not only that, Nintendo has increased the sales forecast for the Switch 2 from 15 million to 19 million, which again, if it reaches that forecast, it will again be exceeding the competition by a comfortable margin of millions of units. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is on track to possibly become the biggest console of all time if it can maintain this insane momentum. Though, speaking of which, its biggest competitor will be the Nintendo Switch, but we'll get back to that in a few moments here. Continuing on though, as part of the success, Mario Kart World has reached 9.57 million copies, or basically 10 million copies sold, which is a 92% attach rate with the hardware, which is insane. Though it kind of makes sense given the fact it's basically bundled in with one of the only options available. But yeah, impressive numbers for Mario Kart World, and that's selling at twice the attach rate of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Though again, that one launched after the system's launch on the Switch, so not exactly a great direct comparison, but it also kind of is. That game also sold amazingly well. Beyond that, Donkey Kong Bonanza, despite only being out for a few months now, sold 3.5 million units, which is again extremely impressive at this point, and probably more than Metro Prime 4 will ever sell. I'm sorry, I hope I'm wrong. So yeah, no matter how you break it down, the Switch 2 is doing insanely well, which has to be making Nintendo happy, especially considering the market conditions. It doesn't seem to be affecting it at all. Beyond that though, I want to circle back to Nintendo's main competitor for the Switch 2, which is actually the Switch 1, because as you may have seen here, the Switch 1 has now currently reached 154.01 million consoles sold. That is crazy. That is a huge amount. And the fact that it's still selling is ridiculous. So continuing off of this puts it 0.01 sales behind Nintendo's best-selling system ever, being the Nintendo DS at 154.02 million units. So the Switch 1 is probably already outsold it, given the fact it's been now weeks since the cutoff date for this report. So yeah, we can now say officially the Switch is, I'm going to say officially, the best-selling Nintendo console of all time. Incredible. That is amazing. But beyond that, it is so freaking close to PlayStation 2 as well, because not only is Nintendo predicting 2 million more Switch consoles to be, 2 million more original Switch consoles to be sold within the fiscal year by the end of March, putting it at 156 million. That's a stone's throw away from the PS2's with 160 million. Now granted, Sony's been, arbitrarily finding new PlayStation numbers to add to that total, so let's see if that changes, but it seems like it's just a matter of time before Nintendo Switch becomes the best-selling console of all time, which is absolutely incredible, which again makes it the Switch 2's #1 competitor. So we'll see if Switch 2 eventually ever beat it or not. Right now momentum is on its side, but again, this isn't a race, it's a marathon, and the Switch has had an insane amount of endurance. So we'll see if the Switch 2 can, maintain it over the coming, 6, 7, 8 years. But with that, everyone, that's all we got for you. Those are the most exciting numbers we talked about. So yeah, Switch 2 doing insane out of the gate. Switch 1 still doing well and could be on track to become the best-selling console of all time. But, Switch 2 could maybe beat it eventually. We'll be back here in 6, 7, 8 years to talk about it. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. With that, we'll catch you later, and we'll see you tomorrow for our Hyrule Warriors stream, which should be a lot of fun. Nick will be hosting that, and then we'll be here on this weekend for Kirby, for our live stream of Kirby Air Riders. Can't wait. All right, everyone, bye.